My goodness.
Talk no more, none of that shit. I'm gonna let you say
Boy Hodge, quick release.
Let's go, eight.
Got me started, wrist frames carded, pull up double parking, don't even pay like I'm the owner, my young niggas retarded.
Yo, what up, guys? We're on the clock. It's Caleb back again with Julian, and today we're joined by a very special guest. We have Jack Quantrill from the Drop Step podcast. How are we doing, Jack? It's a pleasure to have you.
Man, it's my second ever guest spot on a podcast. So you guys are sort of in uncharted waters here. You don't have a ton to go off, but I'm happy that you've taken the leap of faith, as you know, a few of the teams and players that we're going to be talking about today did all those months ago back at the draft. I'm happy to be on here. I'm happy with the gimmick. I think we've got a good episode in store.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. How are we feeling, Julian?
I'm excited, man. I haven't really, I usually kind of just go through a class and then I'm like, all right, whatever. These guys are in the NBA now. So it's nice to kind of go back. I did watch a nice little Wemby game the other night. Um, Unfortunately for him, he was playing against the man, the myth, the legend, Joel Embiid. And my boy dropped 70. So I was pretty stoked. I'm pretty stoked now. Hopefully I get with me and we can just put this all to bed.
Yeah, absolutely. We still have to determine the draft order as we decided before the podcast recording started. We'll do a little wheel in a second, but first, obviously, me and Julian don't talk a ton about the NBA on this podcast. We stick more towards like the draft prospects, and you've been able to watch a lot of these guys as rookies now, and maybe had your intel on them before they got drafted and went to the teams they're on respectively now. What are kind of your feelings first off before we get into it about this rookie class? What kind of is your knee-jerk reactions to some of the performances we've seen from a lot of these rookies? Jordan Hawkins has had some crazy good nights. Jaime Jaquez we'll obviously get to, is on Julian's board today, and we'll both be making our formal apologies to him. He's had a phenomenal rookie season. Tamani Kamara is a guy that we'll talk about hopefully, is a surprising late round pick that has done awesome in Portland. What is kind of been your impression of this rookie class? Maybe Chet and Wemby removed.
I think Chet and Wemby removed is the best idea, because if you ever listen to rookie rankings from anyone else, it's half an hour on those two and then the speed round on the other 57 picks, I suppose.
Me and Julian spent
year.
a total of 25 minutes podcast time on Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson in our draft cycle. We spent 25 minutes. And it was our first podcast. We got him out of the way. We were like, this looks like the number one and number two player. And then we did another one the next week. That was pretty much the Thompson twins. Same thing. So we're all for kind of speeding through. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought it was funny you said that.
I think that's the best way to go about it. I mean, we've got a hell of a lot of content to sort of get through. But what I'd say about this class is, I think two things sort of stand out to me when I've looked at this as sort of an exercise of picking my team. I think there's been a real sort of emergence in this class of 6'6" to 6'8" wings, potentially guys in that almost Jaren Jackson Jr. mold. I know that there's a couple that I'm looking at that could potentially even flip between, being your main guy in pick and roll defense and being that really fun sort of free safety, weak side rim protector. And I look at the class, or I look at the state of the NBA today, and I think these guys are in such short supply that they're a real value commodity. It just made me think maybe we're going to get to a stage where your Jaren Jacksons are valuable, but we're going to see more and more of them coming into the league. And I almost think that 2024 reflects that a little bit as well. And the other thing that I've taken away from it is guys that are good in college seem to be good in the NBA. It's a shock, but we're sort of away from the Frank Kaminsky's, the Cody Zellers of the world that come in and don't necessarily set the world alight. I think that now that, you're getting more one and dones come into the class, or the people that are staying back have really sort of honed their game. college is probably the best indicator that we've got of sort of NBA success, especially when you look at, some of the struggles that players from the G League Ignite have had, or I mean, like players from the G League Ignite, I think that the Thompson twins will definitely get onto today, but Brandon Miller, Jaime Hawkes, Jordan Hawkins, I think they're all guys that we're going to pick today in the draft, and they all really lit it up last year. So I think it's a good reason to be into college basketball if you're more of an NBA fan like me.
100%. I couldn't agree more. I think you highlight a lot of points that I couldn't have said better myself, with especially the state of the league. And, you made a very, very strong point about how it looks at 2024. And I mean, I was talking to Julian before about, kind of how I'm having a problem with this class because the very thing that you said is like, there's this stockpile of players in a draft class that can fit in this range of the 6'6" to, I really view it 6'6" to 7 foot range, where it's these guys that are going to be capable to knock down open shots, defend in space potentially, and protect the rim. And it's few and far between who can do it at elite level. But we got one guy at the top of this class that maybe is the best that we're ever going to see do it. But we'll save it. We'll save it for his couple minutes at the beginning of the draft. Let's get into the draft. I want to preface it one thing before we determine the order. Me and Jack originally discussed this as the idea is that we are each individual franchises. We poofed out of midair, and our job is to build a roster. We only have 3 teams in the league. Only rookies are available that were eligible for this last draft. So, I got potentially like you can take undrafted free agents that maybe Julian had on our board, which is a lot of guys, but I don't think we'll dip that far. But, limited into that, so no chat. And, we're constructing it like a team to compete against each other as the point, essentially. So it should be fun. This is how we mostly have done ours, but I always have to let the audience know. We'll try to do a better job. I've struggled to try and find a way to get a graphic, but I'll try at the end to put up a graphic of what the draft looks like. So our visual viewers can take a gander at it at the end. Spin that thing,
Nice.
Julian.
All right, boys. So I came in and I made a nice little wheel of names. And so how we'll do this, I'll spin it. Whoever wins is obviously going to get the number 1 overall pick. Then I'll remove your name, and then I'll spin for second pick.
All right.
And if you lose, sucks, you're third.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, this 3-team deal.
Oh,
All right, cool. Let's see if I do the same thing in our fantasy league, Julian. Shock the world. I took
yeah,
I took Zvonimir Visic over Victor Wembanyama in our fantasy league, our dynasty league.
Whoa.
We'll say
go
like
ahead and
God.
shock the world, brother. And I am third.
Are we doing this?
I love the
snake?
applause you get from the wheel. It's kind of cool.
Are we doing a snake? So Julian, you've got the 3rd and 4th pick.
Yes.
Good. That works out. I think it's good to be on the turn. I'm sort of stuck in the middle. I've got to pick my spots a little bit.
Yeah, we basically
like-
just flip-flopped from what I had proposed to start, which is completely fine with me. And I'll put his name in before we even start really the metaphorical clock, but we're always on the clock. Got him. All right. I'm going to take with my first overall pick, obviously, Victor Wembanyama. In my lifetime as a basketball fan, I think particularly in the last 5 or 6 years, as I've started to gear my brain more towards like an analytical scouting and team building perspective, which is kind of what I've honed my look at. I've never seen a player like Victor Wembanyama that checks literally every single box you're looking for when you want to build a player in a lab to, kind of build your franchise around. I think, in a fantasy basketball format, I'd rather, in a dynasty league that maybe will last like 6 or 7 years, maybe I'll take a guy who's a guard who I know can put up, 30 points per game for me right away. and defer to take a college first round pick, which was fine for me because I ended up tanking. I'm gonna get Cooper Flag. We know that, Julian. But all jokes aside, Victor Wembanyama is on his way to what it looks like to be one of the most impactful defensive players we've ever seen as a rookie, in terms of just pure, counting stats. I saw a video from Jimmy High Roller. I think it was yesterday or it was today, kind of talking through, really the sheer like gravity of those numbers. Like nobody besides like Anthony Davis is even neared, 4 steals and blocks per game in a season, kind of where he's at such a young age as a teenager. And then also what he's able to do on the offensive end, is in a class of his own as well. And kind of the talks of guys like Shaq, David Robinson, where we're seeing these dominant players. But the story with Victor Wembanyama is like this dude's shooting jumpers, like willingly going to shoot a good amount of threes. I mean, he has shot 187 threes this year. And that is, on my list of players that I have from this class, that I believe that's 4th total. And the other guys higher than him are Keontae George, Brandon Miller, and Jordan Hawkins. Those are guys that are getting drafted to shoot. Victor Wembanyama is 7'4", and I think if his shot diet will clean up. But that just like that number just shows the sheer gravity of where this game is going. And I think it highlighted he is the type of player that highlights all the points that Jack made at the top of the pod perfectly. And I think this is a good spot to move on from him because, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm jealous you got to go first. Guys, just to give you a little insight into the start of the pod. I was offered first pick and I said, no, I can't do that. I can't come and sort of rig it for myself. And I'm regretting it now because I'm faced with the same decision that Mitch Kupchak was faced with back in, when is the draft? Is it June? I think it's June. But I can't believe that I'm saying this after all the flack he took. I'm going to take Brandon Miller at 2. I think that Brandon showed himself off to be sort of a premier prospect in college at Alabama. I think that since he's come into the league, he's adjusted and just has not had the proverbial airtime, essentially. Miller has been able to come into the league, been able to shoot, to a high level. Over his last 10 games, he's shooting 36% from 3 on 6.5 attempts per game. I've seen flashes of the playmaking. He's able to help out on the boards. And for a rookie coming into the league, I know that he's slightly on the older side on sort of the rookie prospect here. Shows real great patience on the ball, doesn't seem rushed. I think the handle is advanced enough that he can sort of get to the cup, shoot from the mid-range, and obviously bomb away from 3 as well. And when I'm thinking about this from like a team building perspective, I don't think that Brandon Miller takes anything off my table. Dependent on what you guys do, Brandon Miller can be my 2, my 3, or my 4. We might have this like KD rookie season vibe in Seattle where he's asked to play shooting guard. Well, we've got another 6'10" guy sort of miscast, but I'm happy with Brandon Miller. I might come to regret it, seeing like sort of the point guard class that we've got coming through, but I think that I'm going to move on from there. Yeah.
Great pick. Me and Julian were very much in believers in Scoot, but I think it was more of our admiration for Scoot Henderson more than it was a disliking for Brandon Miller. I made a scouting metric last year for this draft class, and I went through and did the couple years before. I mean, the best 2 prospects I have by my metric in the last 3 drafts are Victor Wembanyama and Brandon Miller. So, it speaks against, maybe what I thought and my intuition, but that's why it's a metric, right? So, I'm hoping that, as Scoot develops, we start to see him kind of rise to that, 3rd pick caliber stock, but Brandon Miller's been phenomenal so far. Julian, to you.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Brandon Miller's pick, even though I kind of was just against status quo and picking and like trying to be against the status quo and my criticism of him a little bit, maybe nitpicked a little bit too much.
The team building point you made was perfect, though. No matter where he went, it was going to be a good scenario for him long run. I think that was the thing with Charlotte that, shined above Scoot's raw talent, I think, as a guard. I think me and Julian both agreed on that.
Yeah. So I actually am gonna go in a direction that's probably gonna be surprising, but when I explain it, it makes sense. I'm gonna take Derek Lively. Um, there are no, yeah, Jack, you're gonna have trouble finding
Screwed.
it. Um,
Absolutely screwed.
I was looking through and I was like, okay, so if I don't get Wembanyama, what other big men can I take for this exercise? And unfortunately, there's a couple of other guys who are further down who've had a little bit of impact, but like Lively's been exactly what Dallas has wanted, right? They needed a guy who was actually going to defend, unlike Christian Wood, and who was going to be big and grab rebounds and roll to the rim. And Lively does all those things really well. So to pair them together, I might as well put a devastating pick and roll into action here and take Scoot Henderson. I know he struggled. I know he's not been efficient from the field, especially scoring the ball. But man, like his passing flashes are so good. He's such a dog on both ends. He's so fun to watch. I do think he's going to grow into it and like be okay and like still be a great point guard for the next 10 years. But I do kind of think like maybe Charlotte might have been right on taking a more instant impact guy in Brandon Miller. Um, and I hate to say that, and I'm really upset to say it.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I love what were kind of your feelings about Scoot? Obviously you're kind of trashing Ignite before we got the draft underway, but what do you kind of feel about Scoot as a rookie so far?
So I think sort of from Scoot's case, I'm very much of almost like the Darius Garland camp, where you look at him in his first year in the NBA, and there were articles coming out saying he was the worst player in the league. I think that I probably overestimated the sort of prep school element of the G League and sort of the G League Ignite to the point where I thought Scoot might come in and be a little bit more sort of accustomed maybe to the pace and the physicality of the game. I've got no long term worries about Scoot Henderson. I think that he's going to be a great point guard in this league. Just I know that one thing has to develop for him. It either has to be the shot or it has to be the rim pressure. And that's really going to tell us sort of how Scoot's career goes, basically. Are we going to sort of see Brody reincarnate? Are we going to see a Derrick Rose? Are we going to see a John Wall? There was a highlight that went round last year of a very Derrick Rose-esque dunk from the G League Ignite. I think that he was maybe coasting a little bit last year, sort of preserving himself through fear of injury. But I know that he's got that raw and sort of explosive athleticism. But I look at Scoot and I think that he's got the stroke from the mid range. He's been solid from the free throw line this year. It's just about getting that shot prep right and ideally sort of just being able to stretch back to that 3-point line. If he can access the off the dribble jumper, that's going to be the important thing. Yeah, big fan of Scoot. Just give him time. Darius Garland is case in point, really.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's still criticizing him, but I mean, he's leading the class in assists, which I mean is what you want to see out of the top guard prospect. And, he's got a positive, assist to turnover ratio heading towards kind of that, that solid 1.5 mark, which is not bad for a rookie point guard, which,
And Derek Lively as well. Yeah, Julian, you've killed me. You've killed me. I don't know whether one of you is going to be spiteful enough to take a big like in the next pick or two, just to like really just count me out of this draft. Do you know how gutted I was when I realized I couldn't pick Duop Reith under the rules that we've established?
Mm-hmm.
He's not eligible?
No.
Shoot. He was on my board.
I was Googling this on the way home from work today. I was like, right, undrafted 2018. He is officially not in this. We're not having 27-year-old
He was not
rookies.
2023 undrafted, which is our Qualifier. Colin Gillespie would have been a filthy pick coming off the bench, average a triple-double. I mean, it's with our guys, it's most of these guys are getting G League time. So, I mean, he's been torching them all season anyway. Who are you rocking with, Jack? It's your pick, correct?
Yeah. I'm going for one of the highest upside guys in the class. I'm going for Amen Thompson. And despite sort of Elsar's really flashy start, I'm still much higher on Amen. It all comes down to fluidity of movement for me with him. I first ever guest that I had on the drop step was Brado NBA, who does a great job covering Houston and does the Brado and Will show. Very good. They're actually going to come back on the podcast in a couple of weeks' time. But we were talking about Amen Thompson then, and the thing that's always stuck with me is when I watch him. Did you guys ever have a PlayStation 2?
Yes.
Huh?
You know how on a PlayStation 2 you could move in 8 directions on your analog stick? It was like points of the compass,
Yeah.
north, south, east, west. I think that watching Amin Thompson is kind of like going from a PlayStation 2 to a PlayStation 3. The way that he can sort of access points on the court, the way that he can move and get to his spots, he really looks quite video gamey at points. And I think the fact that I've got Brandon Miller already provides a little bit of outside shooting. I'm going to go heavy on the 3-point shooting, and let's see if we can get some micro ball Rockets vibes going here.
I love it. I love it. I am going to take with my next pick. I'm going to take his twin brother, and who was also picked after him in the NBA draft. And I'm going to take Asar Thompson, who I had originally seven. I have my board right here on my dock next to it. On my final board I had Asar 7th and I'm in 12th. And my biggest criticism of Amin was, like you said, he can get to some of these spots with the shiftiness of his dribble. It just his handle wasn't really sure enough for me to be like, I don't think I'm not convinced entirely that he's a premier guard at this point. I think it might be a better wing. And I looked at his brother and I was like, he's more used to doing wing things. And this class is pretty strong in this area of talent mixed with upside at the draft. That was kind of my reasoning, but I've been so pleasantly surprised with kind of all the things that I expected from Asar Thompson, game to game in the OTE in terms of impact on the game, just being a better athlete than all these guys at that level. And he's able to, get all these blocks, all these rebounds, and all these steals. And I just, for a while, I think I just chalked it up to, he's such a better athlete than these guys in this league, mind you, in this OTE league, that I think, I don't know if he'll have this strong of an impact on the defensive end and on the glass in the NBA. And I've been completely proven wrong. And I'm super happy about it. I mean, he's been awesome. I think the jump shot with both of them will get there eventually. I think Amends, some of his stuff off the dribble is looking a little bit better from time to time, but not a safe bet with either of them. But I think if I want, if I have a guy who can stretch the floor and Victor Wembanyama at one of the big spots, I think I can afford to take a guy who's going to be impact player on both ends, and who I believe is probably the best perimeter defender in this draft, and Asar Thompson. And then I'm going to follow it up with Jaime Jaquez Jr. And I think that there's a case that, Jaime could have been the third pick, or if people really want to have early returns on it, could have gone even number 2. But safely, I think Jaime is going to be a player that can round out any lineup. He's very efficient at both ends. We've seen him being able to get to his spots at the NBA, same thing he was able to do in college. And I was talking to Julian earlier today about how I really missed on Jaime. I had him at 57 on my final board. I'll own it. And it was definitely a big miss for me. And I think it was most of me just saying, he's such an older player. And I think he's a good player, but I don't see him maybe, I think he'll be good early, but I don't see him maybe having that potential or that upside. And I think I underrated him as an athlete. And all these small things where he's still able to get to his spots like he was in college, and it really, really is a good NBA athlete. He turned my head for sure with some of his performances early, and of late he's been super consistent. Arguably the most consistent rookie in this class besides Wembanyama or Chet. So I've loved everything I've seen from Jaime. I think he rounds out. I think I might have a smaller front court here depending on where it goes later in the draft. I'm kind of contemplating, but I think when you got a player like that who's just going to put ball in hoop and make the right play, you got to take him.
I wanted Jaime Jorquez. I did. That's twice now, guys. Thanks for having me on the pod, but you're absolutely killing me here. Yeah, the aim was to have three guys that sort of impact on both ends, can play make a little bit, and can all score. And I'm going to sacrifice one of those things for now. I'm going to sacrifice playmaking a little bit. Uh, and I'm going to go real upside. This is a guy that really slipped down the board on draft night, but I'm taking Cam Whitmore with my next pick. Um, I'm looking around. I'm looking at my team, and I think between the three of them, I have a number one option. Between Brandon Miller, between Cam Whitmore, and between Amin Thompson, I have a number one option somewhere. And I just think that I've been so impressed with Whitmore in the G League. He's absolutely lit it up. He's got over 10 3-point attempts per game. He's actually moved the ball far more than he did at Villanova. Some of the athleticism as well, some of these sort of, I don't know if it's dunks in practice. I've seen, I think I saw a reverse alley oop the other day in terms of the highlights. He's able to get to his shot off the dribble. He's an absolute bully already at 20 years old. And yeah, I think that Houston, just on a wider point, in terms of the level of athleticism that they're going to have at the sort of 2 through 4 spots, they're going to have a really exciting future. And I'd still be excited to watch my team, even if we don't have a real 5.
I can
Fair
get
enough.
behind that.
I mean, with Whitmore, I think that you'll definitely be able to keep pushing the pace. With Thompson, that's going to be a really fun fast break in the future, actually, for the Rockets. And I mean, I'm shaking my head not to pick at myself because that's my guy. And I really just thought that maybe I thought Julian probably wouldn't take him, maybe this time around. I really thought about him and two other guys with my last pick, and obviously one of them was Jaime Jaquez. So great pick. Love Whitmore. I was a huge fan of his game. Had him number 3 on my final board. I was probably higher on him than I'd say 99% of people. And I loathed every single moment that he had to wait. In that room for his name to be called, because he certainly didn't deserve it. He deserved to definitely be one of their first 5 people in that draft call. In my opinion, I really think he should have been there. But great pick. I think it's a great add to your lineup. He's such an underrated shooter. So underrated.
Off the catch and off the dribble. They're the
Yeah.
two. I mean, I just think that he's going to be really fun going forward. And I was listening to Sam Vecini talk about Cam the other day and just sort of do a mini lap of victory, because I think he got clowned a little bit, being quite bulky on Whitmore, being I think number 4 on his board. And some of the reports around his knees, they've said this might be a problem that sort of occurs in year 8, year 10. And I'm not surprised. A guy that's that explosive, let's enjoy him while we can. I think that he's going to make a real impact on the NBA sooner rather than later.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, man, he's phenomenal.
I couldn't stand with the pre-draft process did to his stock. It was unreal. But we can talk about that a different day. Julian,
I'm happy because I am going to stock my front court with 2 very large, very mobile, very shot happy guys. Well, not necessarily. One of them's not necessarily shot happy, but he's becoming shot happy in the G League. I'm going to start by taking my boy Jarris Walker. Jack, you took Cam from me, man. I was going to take it. I was
way off by thinking that he was going to get past me.
And then I'm going to aggravate Caleb, and I'm going to take GG Jackson. And now I have a 7-footer and 2 very, very big mobile 6'8" forwards, and I'm going to destroy with my low point guard, Scoot Henderson. GG is another guy who just should not have fallen as far as he did. I get falling out of the lottery. That's fine. The fact that GG Jackson was not a first-round pick is straight up just either bad scouting, inexcusable, or both, however you want to define it. He's such a gifted shot maker. He was the youngest player in the draft. He's kind of the similar story to Whitmore, where they were both highly touted recruits, went to schools to be the guy, and the team sucked. And I think it hurt their stock when it really shouldn't have. Um, and I think like at the end of the day, GG Jackson is going to get more minutes. I mean, he dropped like 23 a week or two ago. Um,
Mhm.
and as for Jarris, he's like averaging like 30 or something like that preposterous in the G League. I'm starting to see the off the dribble jump shot coming from him, which is really, really big. I think it's a tough situation for him because Indiana wasn't really expecting to compete as much as they are this year, and they kind of went all in to get Siakam, which I think is tough for his development. I think honestly they don't want to trade him, but I think at the rate things are going, they might have to. Because I think he's going to probably need to reset. Honestly, I just don't think he's a guy who is a day one like already proven commodity as much as some of these other guys are, like Brandon Miller and Jaime Jaquez. But I do think if he gets the opportunity to like really play NBA minutes on a bad team, like he will develop into a star, and I'm very confident on that. So my front court's done. Jack, off to you, bud.
Don't do it,
Uh,
Jack. I know we've been mean to you, but don't steal my pick.
Okay, all right. Jarris was a great pick. I quite frankly disagree. I think that he's going to stick around in Indiana. I look at what they've done with the Siakam trade, and they've sort of moved all their picks in 24. I think that they'll treat Jarris as their 24 first round pick. Essentially, he's had
I
time
like
to
that.
really sort of explore the studio space in the G League. Couple of highlights gone round, sort of him getting to that three off the dribble as well. I wonder if he can get to a stage where he can almost play the three next to Siakam. And if the shot is really that solid, is really that strong, then suddenly you go from Indiana having Buddy Hield guard Giannis Antetokounmpo to having either Pascal Siakam or Jarris Walker to sort of throw at them. So that would be really fun. I'm picking a specialist next. I'm picking a guy that has made impacts at the NBA level already. I want Jordan Hawkins. I'm so conscious that I've got Ammon Thompson already that I just think I need to surround this dude with as much shooting as possible. And Jordan is a guy that I've gone quite deep on in terms of the NBA. I actually wrote a little piece on him for FFSN, and I branded him as the NBA's first wide receiver, essentially, because in the first month and a bit of the season, this guy was getting out in transition and running to the corner, getting out in transition, running to the corner. He was running routes. He wasn't taking dribbles. He was spotting up in the corners and just has, really good sort of solid principles in terms of how to space on the court. And I look at how the NBA is going. I look at sort of some of the success that Utah has had in recent weeks, utilizing Lowry coming off all these screens, sort of like a 2020s version of Reggie Miller in Indiana. And I think that genuinely Jordan Hawkins is going to be a source of offense in this league for the next decade or so. The shot is 100% real. I don't think he's been picked on quite as much as I thought he might have been coming into the league. And anything sort of off the dribble, which we've seen flashes on, is a bonus. I think he really fits in my team, whether he's sharing a court with Thompson, Whitmore, or Brandon Miller, because they're all guys that can handle the ball a little bit more. I needed a specialist.
I love it.
I like it.
I love his fit with the Pelicans too, because I just think it really fits what they're trying to build. If we had healthy Trey Murphy coming into the year, I'm curious what this team looks like at this point relative to where they are now. Still doing well. Just Zion's so inconsistent, but a guy like Hawkins provides those consistent shooting nights that you need when your primary player is an interior scorer. I was hoping that I was going to get Whitmore with one of these two picks. And I was also hoping to get GG Jackson a little bit later. So now that that's been thwarted, I'm still have the fourth player on my board available. The fourth and the seventh player on my board, my reflection board, I'm calling it. Two guys, both shooting over 38% from three on over 100 attempts this season so far. Both of them going on, both of them kind of entering different situations, but both entering the season with high hopes to be impact players, possibly in the rotation. I'm going to take Bilal Coulibaly to team up with Victor Wembanyama again with my 4th round pick. And then with my 5th round pick, I'm going to take Cason Wallace, who
Oh,
has, basically copy and pasted his season that he had last year for Kentucky to his rookie year in the NBA. And I was looking back at his numbers, and mind you, me and Julian, like, we're never preaching to be NBA experts or like in terms of like landscape of the league at the point. We know the players, we know the gist. We definitely know the guys that are younger in the league. But I've not been keeping up day to day enough to really gather the full picture of the impact that Casey Wallace has had. 2.74 assist to turnover ratio, shooting 42% from three, even though, he's only, getting so many touches. So, maybe that's why his efficiency is high. But he's on a Thunder team that just simply don't need him to shot create. And he's, been flawless in his role, defending primary guards, big size at 6'4". So I'm not really going to have, any headaches with Amen Thompson utilizing his size to create easy baskets. And he's going to be able to keep up with Scoot Henderson up and down the floor all day long. And then, add Bilal Coulibaly in there, another lanky defender who can knock down his open shots. And he also has some savviness to his game that we've been kind of hinting at with these players that are kind of in this range, like we're talking about at the beginning of the pod, 6'6" to 6'11", have some have kind of a premier trait, whether it's athleticism or shooting or length, and then have this potential to continue to add on these small skill sets. And Blau is another one of these guys with his shot making that if he turns into a consistent shooter like he already is and continues that trajectory, this is a guy, in a couple years for a Wizards team that, is looking for saving grace at the wing position. Because, Denny Aviha's, solid. But other than that, they really don't have much else besides Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. And, that's not translating to winning. So, I feel like I got a franchise player here, later in the round. So I'm feeling good, and I got my starting point guard. Jack?
yeah, I wanted Casey Wallace later in the draft. I thought that he might fall to me. I'm in two minds here. Do I just do I do point guard by proxy off the bench and start to get some front court guys, or do I go ahead and take? See, I could really mess Julian up by taking Brandon Pajemski here, but I think I'm going to leave him on the board. I think I am actually going to take my small ball 5 for this lineup. It's another guy that has been lighting it up in the G League. I'm high on him long term. I think that he's starting to break into the Utah Jazz's rotation. I'm going to take Taylor Hendricks here. And another guy that has really sort of shown himself to be a better shooter than, or sort of the level of shooter that we thought he was in college, in the G League already. He's getting up 3-point attempts. He's being impactful on both ends of the floor. He's getting a block a game and a steal per game in the G League at the moment. And I don't know if I've already screwed up. I'm almost questioning it here because there are sort of similar players, but I look at Hendricks and I think that this is a guy that, in a couple of years' time is going to be really valued around the league in terms of he can already space the floor. I think he's going to have a really high ceiling on defense, and I've got enough ball handling around the team that he can just sort of be my lights out shooter from the 5 position.
I love it.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a big
in
fan
the
of
same
that.
mold that we've been talking about. So, this is the future of the league, and he definitely fits it, and why he was so highly regarded by many and drafted where he was.
He's gonna be really, really good in a couple of years. Like if he's another one of these guys, like especially the high end wings like that, you got to give him time. Especially if you're a developing team. Like not all these guys are gonna come into the league, have it figured out right away. Like obviously there's been some guys that have, but I would say more often than not, it probably takes 2 to 3 years for these guys to really like hit that next level. And Taylor's a guy who wasn't even talked about early in the season. I would say until October, I don't think anyone was talking about Taylor Hendricks as a lottery pick at all. You know what I mean? Like till the season started, till we were underway, it was probably 3 or 4 games in when everyone's like, "Oh, this kid Taylor Hendricks, like might be a guy. And then like next thing you know, he's top 10 on a lot of people's boards, and I think it was justified, you know. Um, you got to watch out for guys that slide up the board really, really quick, because it means that they're producing at an unexpected level, which probably means they've gotten too good for college in most experiences. I know it's not always true. I think it was true for the guy that I'm going to take, which is Keontae George. Uh, I want another guard who can play make, and I want a guard who can also be a bulldog on defense along Scoot Henderson. And there is nobody who I would rather take than Keontae George. He is averaging, he has over two turnover assist to turnover ratio. He's shooting a solid 30-ish% from three, which could be better, but I mean, you know what? He's leading all rookies in assists, and he's been phenomenal as a playmaker so far. So I'm gonna finish out my starting five with him, and then get my specialist off the bench and take. Ooh, actually, no, I'm gonna change gears here. I'm gonna take Marcus Sasser off the bench. Um, I'm gonna take the production. He's so good off the dribble. He's probably outside of Przemski, he's probably the best 3-point shooter on the board. Um, and I just want a guard to come off my bench and score a lot of points. So I'm gonna take my boy Marcus Sasser.
Yep, that's who
I think that's. Go on, Caleb. Go for it.
that's who I was eyeing up for my next pick. For almost 40% from three. So I mean, he's having a phenomenal year. Obviously not a lot of touches on Detroit. That's kind of backcourt heavy, but I mean, we all knew that going into the year when they drafted him. High efficiency playmaker, 90% from the free throw line. 40, almost 47, 40, 90 as a rookie. Great numbers and low volume. I love the pick though. Perfect to come off a bench for this type of scenario.
Right. I'm not Kevin O'Connor, so I'm not suggesting that he should have gone top 5 in a redraft here, but it is now time to take Brandon Pajemski. I think that he's fallen too far. Personally, he would have been higher on my board than Keontae. I think that Keontae's walked into a much tougher role in Utah. He's been asked to take on a lot more reps, and he's sort of really working through that. We saw really explosive performance in sort of summer league, and I think that he's shown real flashes. But I think for the style of team that I've built, I like the idea of a connector, a guy that's already shown that he can integrate into a system that really requires high basketball feel, a guy that's shot the lights out through the season, 38% or verging on 39% from 3-point range, helps out on the boards. I'm doing rebounding by committee on this team. I don't think there's a single player that I've picked that doesn't like to go up there and grab a rebound, and that's probably good because I don't even know if I'm going to have a traditional 5 on this team. But Pajemski is just he's an archetype that I'm really looking out for over the next few draft classes. I don't want to be lazy and compare him to the other white guy that's getting a lot of shine in the college season, but Reed Shepherd is another one of these players that I think is potentially going to come into the league, and just it's nice to have someone that makes everyone's lives easier. And we've sort of spoken about that as, oh, it's Damian Lillard, it's Steph Curry, it's your big offensive one that basically gets your corner 3 guys easy shots throughout the game. I think that we're going to see a new sort of archetype continue to emerge as guys get a little bit more skilled, that get guys quicker shots because they move the ball quicker, because they know where to be on the court, because they know how to, he's hitting skip passes already. This is a guy that we spoke about late risers. I think this has been a trend for our last few picks. Pajemski was borderline first round, sort of before the combine, I think, and just continued to fly up and fly up and fly up. He's an archetype that I really like. I'm pretty high on him, and I think that he blends quite nicely with my team.
I agree. I think he fits into that kind of role that Bruce Brown has paved now. for guys to kind of step into to be that kind of undersized utility player, kind of similar to Josh Hart we've seen in that type of role in the past. So, great player, shooting very, very well. It's kind of we've expected. And I think Reed Shepard will come in and be able to do a lot of those little things and be able to even knock down more shots. Can't imagine they can shoot any better than he is right now. I am kind of left with a dilemma. I know one player I want to take, but I want to take him with the second of the picks that I have. Just for aesthetic reasons. But I cannot really determine. I kind of want to get more rim protecting. I like Tomani Kamara, and I wanted to talk about him a little bit, but I don't know if he fits this team. And I might go for somebody that is getting more and more playing time recently, who could play the 4 or the 5. And can do a little bit of everything. And in my strong belief and on my team, he would start shooting some more jumpers. And I think I'm gonna take Trace Jackson Davis.
Ah,
Okay,
And then
that's fine.
I am going to take, to be a little swing pick, I'm gonna take Nick Smith Jr. as well with my last pick. Fun fact, Nick Smith Jr. is currently shooting the best 3-point percentage in this entire class and over 75 attempts at 46%. Obviously he hasn't played a ton, for the Hornets, but he's had moments. Watching back, some of his tape at Arkansas, it's hard to see how a guy like this is not gonna find a role off the bench in the NBA. I think once his body matures and he starts to get into a rhythm of, what you're kind of talking about with Jordan Hawkins, is how can I get these baskets where it doesn't have to come off 3 or 4 dribbles. And once Nick Smith can figure out how to get 1 or 2 of those a night, preferably from 3, then he's going to be turning into a much valuable player consistently. And right now, when he is getting those shots and the shots that he's creating for himself, he's making a lot of them from deep. So I've been impressed in small quantities. I feel like he fits well as my backup guard. And I think I'll probably do something pretty funky with my lineup. And I'll think about that as you guys are making your next couple picks. I know I rocked the world with the Trace Jackson Davis.
that's who I wanted.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that you picked Trace Jackson Davis because I just wanted the opportunity to talk about this guy. I'm picking a guy that's taller than Trace Jackson Davis. I'm picking a guy that has had some of the most rapid shooting development that we've seen over the past sort of 18 months. He's mainly got his minutes in the G League this year, but as my kind of 5, oh, Julian, this is a good face. If you're watching this, this is good. I want Leonard Miller.
I knew it.
Oh no, I knew it. That's who
knew
I was
it.
thinking about. That's who I was really
That's who I
deliberating over
wanted.
right there.
God,
I'm taking Trace Jackson Davis.
I'm
was gonna.
so glad. I wanted Miller. He's shooting 6 3-point attempts per game in the G League this year. He's knocking them down at a 43% clip. He was an absolute monster on the boards last year. 11 rebounds per game for the Ignite. 8.3 this year for Minnesota's G League team. I'm not going to embarrass myself and try and remember what they're called at present, but I just think that my team might actually be getting lottery picks if they were to play today, but I've gone high on upside, and I think that by the time these guys are reaching their second contracts, I can see Leonard Miller developing into quite a special player. In fact, I was sort of an advocate for Minnesota sort of considering Carl Anthony Towns trade because I'd like to open more minutes for Miller. They've got history of developing players at that position. I think that in a way they're kind of different, but Naz Reid has a similar sort of aesthetic in terms of this big guy with quite a sweet stroke that almost likes to do a bit off the dribble. I don't think that Miller's handle is, quite polished. He's not got the wiggle that
He can
Naz
do
Reid
it.
has. Yes, exactly. But is Leonard Miller going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo with a 3-point shot? I'm not going to bet my house on it, but I'm going to say it just to see if I can swing some votes right at the end of the podcast.
I love it. Great pick. I think he fits your team really well because he's another guy who's got some untapped facilitating potential. That can distribute alongside Amen Thompson on your team to your scorers and shooters. I like it. And he's bigger. I mean, if you play him at your small ball 5, you're not going to be doing too bad.
Exactly. That's the idea.
Man.
I mean, Hendricks is fun. I like that. That's fun.
Man, I got cooked on back-to-back picks. Just brutal. I got to think now, well, because I know who I'm gonna take. I'm pretty sure, but I was very much hoping to get one of those two guys to be my backup forward. Instead, I guess I'll settle and take Tamani Kamara. He's just the best player on the board. I honestly think I'm glad he went to Portland because he's getting a lot of minutes because that team is struggling. He's reunited with my guy, Scoot Henderson over there. They're going to have some fun. And he's shooting the ball a lot better than I thought he would in the NBA, to be honest with you. He's what? Let me check. Shooting. Never mind. I thought, you know what it is?
He's shooting 28.1, but he's got 114 attempts. I mean, it's what they're do.
You know what keeps happening?
Out of the players on the board, I mean, he's got more made threes than Craig Porter Jr.
Yeah, I keep mixing up field goal percentage and 3-point field goal percentage when I'm looking at it and getting really excited when I see like a 40 next to his name. But yeah, man, Tumani's really good. He's gonna at least provide the option to space the floor, even if he's not shooting the 3 well. He's really good at getting downhill. Solid weak side help protector, and just kind of like a nice little forward to finish my team off.
First, I want to do honorable mentions of any players that you feel like we missed. Like each of us give one, not a pick, so like we'll just no particular order. You guys can just kind of throw them out. Anything that comes to mind that was somebody on your board, and then we'll kind of go through and do like a 1-minute pitch, and then we'll kind of talk through whose team we think's the best and wrap this baby up.
Yeah, I'll go first. I'm still high on Grady Dick. I like Grady in college. He was young. He was, impacting the game at college level in his first season for Kansas, to the team that regularly goes far in March Madness. And I think that as soon as that shot starts falling, we're going to see real impact. And I really like where he's placed long term next to Scotty. There's a great comparison sort of between Hawkins and Dick in terms of like how they find space on the court to get their threes off. I think that Grady is really, really intelligent in how he moves about the court, and it's subtle. I spoke about Hawkins as like a wide receiver. I think that Grady sort of just sneaks around a little bit, and before you know it, he's lifted up on the wing and he's open for a 3. I was tempted to leave him till last because I didn't think that anyone else would take him.
Fair enough. I have two big point guards that I was really high on. Anthony Black and Jalen Hood-Schifino are two guys that I still think have some staying power in the league. Especially, I think Black in limited minutes has shown some good flashes on defense. I think his shot is a lot further along than people think, and about the same level, if not a little bit better than the Thompsons. But I mean, it's whatever. It's semantics at that point between those jump shots. But Jalen Hood-Schifino is a guy that we haven't seen a lot of in the NBA, mostly doing it in the G League, and he's been pretty proficient. I still think that he's a guy who, after this Lakers era, along with Max Lewis, I'm curious to see what the two of them are able to do in their system, or if they're possibly moved to a different place here at the deadline. I think that they could be names that we possibly see thrown in some trades if the Lakers are trying to add another piece, which they always are. So. Yeah, those are two names I wanted to make sure we got out there. Shout out Jalen Slauson, Demoy Hodge, Ben Shepherd, the boys.
Yeah, I wanted to mention Jordan Walsh, and also I know he hasn't been playing superbly well, but shout out Nathaniel Mensah. I didn't think he was gonna get minutes with the Charlotte Hornets, but here we are.
Amani Bates has been phenomenal in moments, and I mean his G League tape right now is unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Jordan Walsh is a great player. I mean, he's done great in the G League too, and he's in. I mean, we know what we know. High intensity defender, um, and has a good jump shot. I like his jumper, but I mean, he's just not going to get any run with the Celtics at the wing spot right now. But could be a guy in a year or two if they're still digging on their bench to try and find somebody come in and provide impact minutes after the Hauser era is over. I'm sure he'll be happy to step up. Jack, I'll give you the floor first to kind of give a pitch of your team. We've each had a chance to now kind of go over, set our lineup, and figure out what that kind of looks like. You can go first.
Caleb, you are the first person to refer to this iteration of the Celtics as the Hauser era. So, grab that, use that at the start of the pod. I love that. He's a great sort of underrated player in this league. So, I'm going to make the pitch. Now, in hindsight, look, the number one pick in this draft was a 7'4" guy with an 8-foot wingspan, and I've decided to not pick any centers, which could be perceived as interesting. But I think that so let me get the team lineup out of the way. Point guard, we've got Amen Thompson, a guy that's going to be able to drive in transition. I think the handling will improve through the years. We've seen him access the mid range a little bit more. I think he can have ball handling opportunities. Jordan Hawkins, my specialist in the backcourt. I think that Thompson can be a really good defender long term in the league with just how well he can move and sort of his size. So I'm happy to have Hawkins as a guy that just makes it easier on the other end. Then we have the winged tandem, really exciting, of Cam Whitmore and Brandon Miller, both guys that can get 3-point shots up off the dribble. All of these guys really sort of help out on the boards aside from Hawkins, and all of them have a little bit of playmaking in them as well. And then I'm going for Taylor Hendricks at my small ball 5. I think that we're just playing 5 out, simple as that. I think that if you look at some of the teams at the top of the league, like the OKC Thunder, like the Boston Celtics, we're just seeing it as a re-emerging trend once again, that 5-out spacing makes it much easier for all your guys to operate. The likes of Derek White to get all the way to the cup. He's quite an industrious driver, but the fact that he's got all this sort of space, even Jaylen Brown isn't having his handle bothered too much anymore, sort of in traffic getting to the rim. So I think that Taylor is going to sort of serve to be that for my Thompson, for Whitmore, for Miller. And then I've got Pajemski to just come in either guard spot, either sort of move the ball when he's playing with Thompson, or the two initiators in Whitmore and Miller. And I've got Leonard Miller as well as my wild card. I was almost tempted to put him as my starting 5-man because I think that he's.
I mean, hey man, with this lineup, you could throw him in the
player.
backup one. If you really
I
want to
could.
he could play
I could.
I think 1 and then 3 through 5 on your card.
I'm sick of positions, man. It's positionless basketball. I've picked hoopers, and I think they blend. I think we're tearing it up in transition. We can space the floor, and we're going to be switchy because we have to be.
And I'll segue into mine because that's what I'm all about, is the switchability at my wing positions, guarding all these phenomenal creators at 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" that we have. And even in this scenario, I think about the likes of Cam Whitmore, Brandon Miller, Gigi Jackson, as guys who are going to go and try to get their own shot at that size. And I think that I got 3 guys that can stop those players quite effectively. I got Cason Wallace at my point guard. Jaime Jaquez is playing the 2, but I'd rather think of it more positionally, like you said. I think I have Cason Wallace at my guard. My kind of off-ball spacers on offense are Jaquez, Coulibaly, and Thompson. I'll probably have Coulibaly and Thompson guard, Whitmore and Miller, and Jackson. I might have Thompson take the Scoot Henderson assignment if he's up for it, and then have Wembanyama kind of roam around and pick off easy drives from the weak side. I think that'll be fun to see, especially with the talent of a guy like Thompson. Wembanyama's ability to just kind of grab and go as a big man is going to get us out in transition. Wallace, Coulibaly being able to knock down shots early. Jaquez 3-point shot has been inconsistent, but I think he's a shot maker, true and that's going to come along with time. And I think on this team, with a bigger role and more shots. I think he'll get it going most nights, and we'll have a good version of Jaime Jaquez, similar to what we saw at UCLA. And then, Trace Jackson Davis can come in and play, small ball 5 if we want to slide Victor Wembanyama to the 4, and maybe utilize him more as a creator on the perimeter, or just to give him a break against Derek Lively. And then, got Nick Smith to come in there and knock down shots. And, if it turns into garbage time, it's going to be the Nick Smith Jr. show. So, hey, I love my team. I was able to get a lot of the top players on my board for this redraft, but I think it also speaks to the fact that this is a draft class that we're going to have to watch for some time for a lot of the reasons that Jack has hinted at and Julian's hinted at and I've hinted at throughout this podcast. And as a basketball fan, you may sit here, well, I'm going to go watch the game right now. I don't really want to sit and listen to somebody talk about the 2023 NBA draft class. But if you're somebody who enjoys basketball and enjoys learning, you're going to be able to look at this draft class down the line and even look at our own early returns and nitpick ours and say, well, you really should have held out longer on Amani Bates. He might be, all of a sudden he's an all-star in a decade, averaging 25 or something like that. Who knows? So, although it is arbitrary, it is fun to see all these class of players in a different light. What?
Brother, you're just giving like a closing speech and didn't let me get my pitch. What are you doing?
Oh, yeah, I forgot. I completely forgot.
You see it?
I thought you went first. That's totally my
Fire
bad.
him. Nah, fire him. It's over.
Fire me.
Fire him. Nah, 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 nah.
I was giving my closing speech though.
Yeah. Do you see how, Jack, do you see this? I have the best team out here and I get disrespected by not getting to talk about how good my team is.
Let's hear it.
I agree with the disrespect.
is-
I don't agree with the best team. Caleb, you had some real momentum on that closing speech, man. I always struggle to close off a podcast. You were wrapping it up nicely. So I'm looking forward to seeing your second free throw attempt, basically. But come on, Julian,
Yeah,
give us the pitch. And I want a rebuttal as well. I feel like I pitched my team.
Absolutely. We'll still have a couple minutes to rebuttal.
it is. I look. Jack's team is definitely going to be the toughest. They're two different matchups, right? We got to deal with the small ball of Jack, which is going to probably run Derek Lively off the floor, and then I kind of have to hope that Victor Wembanyama shoots like 20% from 3, so that Lively doesn't get run off the floor. But outside of those matchups, I love what I got going on. So I've got Scoot Henderson and Keontae George as my backcourt, two really, really dynamic playmaking guards. Both can shoot off the dribble. As I've mentioned, I've got Derek Lively at the center, who is kind of going to be my screener for the most part. Maybe every once in a while, I'll let him take a 3 just for fun, if no one really closes out on him. But I would prefer if he didn't do that, if he didn't have to. And then the part of my team that I'm most excited about is I have a 6'8" and a 6'9" wing in GG Jackson and Jarris Walker, who are just going to be menaces all over the court. They can switch super well, especially with Keontae. I have a lot of switchability between 2, 3, and 4. Hopefully they'll be able to, especially Jarris will be able to get his shot off and be successful, but I'm not concerned about GG scoring. He can get me a bucket whenever we really need one, especially in isolation. And then off the bench, we got, Marcus Sasser, 6th man of the year, will be, a prime time scorer, and Tumani Kamara can provide some versatility if, we decide Lively's got to get off the court and I want to run Jarris, Tumani, and GG Jackson is my 3-4-5. So it'll be fun. And that's my quick 1-minute pitch.
No, it was definitely worth stopping my soliloquy to give your elevator pitch, Julian, because I do like your team, and I think it's dope that we all have like kind of like a guard and like a utility front court player. I think it's pretty nice. We all, I think, drafted pretty well-rounded rosters, even though you might not consider yours as well-rounded because you didn't get a big. I think this is definitely the class to pass on a big if you want to try some small ball and some 5v5 pickup games with all the rookies playing. I think you'll be able to get by. I think it is going to depend on kind of what Julian said with this class. It's like Wembanyama is just far and away is the name that jumps off the page here. But I'll give you a chance for rebuttal, Jack, before we shift to any more second free throw attempts.
Okay, right, here we go. So Caleb, I really like your lineup. I think that Jaime was the guy from your team, aside from Victor, that I really wanted the most. I really wanted to pair him with Jordan Hawkins. But my issue is, I think I look at the Spurs and I look at some of like the problems that they've had so far, is they're lacking that sort of premier pick and roll creator. And Kaysen has been phenomenal this year as your sort of do it all role player. I think that there are Thunder fans sort of talking about him as your Dort replacement long term because they're going to have to sort of watch the salary sheet. And, I think that maybe we can get at your team because you might be lacking a little bit of sort of off the dribble bounce. And I feel like there's been like a sly attempt to say that Alsar Thompson is going to be a spacer. If Alsar Thompson is not a spacer, then we're relying on some tough bucket getting for the Caleb
Vertical
team.
spacing.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, so well, this means that you're parking Vic
Tell
out
me,
on the
tell,
perimeter.
tell me how you feel about Victor Wembanyama, Sar Thompson pick and roll.
I feel like we're building a wall.
Exactly the way that I said it, with Wembanyama with the ball and Thompson as the roller.
No, I think that we're building a wall. I think I'm happy to let Wemby shoot 30% from three, 28% from three on pull-up jumpers.
If I'm on the sideline, he's shooting
highlights
18. If I'm on the sideline, he's shooting all these 18-foot pull-up jumpers that are going to look like floaters to him all over. He's going to pick apart that, come off the screen. They're all dropping, boom, one dribble shot. He's going to miss maybe one of them. And then the French or Baguette KD is gonna light you up from 18 feet. I guarantee it.
All right, 18 feet, fair enough. But you don't have any guys coming off movement. Kaysen's been really good from corners this year, but Jaime, is he going to be sprinting around screens like Jordan Hawkins is, like Keontae George is? I don't know. And then when we come on to Julian's team, Julian, I like your team, man. You took Derek Lively and you took Jarris Walker. Jarris was the guy that was tying my theoretical team together. I was willing to go full small ball if I could have had him as my big bodied sort of Draymond Green style five. But I just sort of look and I think you spoke about sort of the most exciting thing on your team being your 6'8", 6'9" wing pair, and I have a better 6'7", 6'8" wing pair. I've got two guys that are sort of going to be better creators, I think, long term. Two guys that can play make a little bit. They're physical. They're just I think I've got five guys that can potentially initiate in my starting five. We saw Taylor Hendricks take on some real sort of like scoring load back at was it South Florida that you went to college?
Yep.
Yeah, we saw him take on some real scoring load. I think I've got five initiators. This is how you build in the NBA. Look at the Thunder, look at the Celtics. Case closed, guys.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think that if you had Wembanyama, you would be far and away the best team. Swap out Hendricks for Wembanyama, but I'm sure you could say that about any of our teams. And kind of what I was getting at, and I'll make it shorter so we can all get on our nights. We'll put up a graphic here right now, and you guys can decide. Let us know in the comments section or wherever you find the video. Add us all on Twitter. Jack's links will be all in the description. Link to his podcast, The Drop Step. And make sure to keep your eyes out for anything that he puts out going forward. But closing notes on the 2023 reflection draft, whatever you want to call it. And I think I'll probably call it like early returns or something like that. And I think like I was saying before, this class is every draft class is going to help you paint a picture of the class going forward, and the classes that will follow that. And I think for this class, we've found early that a lot of these guys that are in this range of the 6'6" to 6'10", players who can knock down open shots, defend in space, and potentially have one of those premier traits of a premier jump shot athlete, playmaking for some guys, positional size for others. When you add one of these premier traits to a player who can be a capable wing role player, you get some really versatile prospects coming into the draft. A lot of mixing and matching of skill sets. You get your G.G. Jacksons, your Cam Whitmores, your Brandon Millers. I think that going forward, like you were saying, we're valuing these players very highly in our eyes because we see how good of players they can be. But the reality is the NBA is just stocked full of these guys already. Nobody, when they're starting a roster, is going to take Brandon Miller over Jason Tatum. But it's like, we would still want to hold Brandon Miller in this high regard. And I'm just curious about going forward. I think the point that you pretty much made, Jack, was that going forward, it'll be curious to see, will we see, drafts where all the top 20 picks are all 6'6" to 7'2", and they're all guys who, besides maybe your occasional superb rim protector or crazy athlete or, rarefied air point guard prospect or a shot creating prospect or scoring prospect at the guard, we're going to see these 3-and-D mold, 6'6" to 6'10", wing forwards. And I think this class has a good handful of them to monitor going forward and really kind of test our theories. So it was a lot of fun. Thanks for the idea and coming on, Jack. And be sure to go check his links out. Any closing words, Jack, before we call it?
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I've had a lot of fun. I'd love to have you on the drop step as well. I've got to get my time back somehow. But
Absolutely. I'm counting on it.
yeah, keep an eye out because we're doing a little bit of draft coverage. I've got Bryce Simon and Thunder Chats, Dylan Huntsinger of the OKC Thunder Topic Thunder podcast coming on in a week's time to talk about Kentucky guys. And if you're more NBA inclined, I've got Samson Folk coming on tomorrow, who's a guy that I've been trying to book for a little while. And I hope that I don't embarrass myself because that guy knows more about the NBA than I probably ever will. So check out the podcast. But really,
we
really
like to surround ourselves with smarter people too. That's why we brought you on. So,
man. I mean, I don't.
You do
know
great
about
work,
that.
Jack. Be sure to give his stuff a look. It doesn't get near the attention it deserves quite yet, but keep doing your thing, dude. I mean, personally, we'll definitely be in touch. And Julian, had a good time, buddy.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
I love drafts. You know this.
yeah. We
I'm
haven't
a
talked
draft fiend.
2023 class since it ended, like Julian kind of said. So it's been a good little reflection period. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night or day or wherever time you're watching this. We're off the clock.